every time. So you've seen the red hand beat up the blue hand and the blue hand. It's just pivoting. You're being bounced between a wall that is red and blue, like a ping pong ball, and you're being moved towards totalitarianism.
Yeah.
In fact, I should do it the other way, downwards. The gravity pull down. And you'll be attracted to the red guy and then repelled from the blue guy. Weren't they disgusting? Hunter Biden and drugs and underage women and prostitution and all of this. And then you'll be, Donald Trump, yes, and he's cleaning up the government, yes, drain the swamp.
Thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
Great to be with you. Yeah, very happy, and looking forward to this discussion.
Awesome. So let's start with your early life. So growing up, were you always fascinated by the markets, or did this passion develop later in life?
I was taken early. That doesn't mean someone can't develop an interest and become a great market trader and that it's something born. I don't think I was driven by anything particularly noble. I just noticed people worked hard and long for their money, and I preferred the idea of working smart and being lazy and having more time to do cool things. So I was very into play and running about and doing interesting, exciting things. And I thought this money thing is something I wanted to handle in the most efficient manner. I don't think many people are that different, but it was very juvenile and very get rich quickie. To start, I think maybe I can do one thing or two or three things really well and smash the ball out the park. The Ferrari trade mentality was in there because I just thought I just wanted to cut to the chase where I got status, wealth, and could lord about and do all the other things like chase girls and ride motorbikes. Which seemed like more fun at the time.
And was there like one thing that you can think back on that reminded you of like, this is when I started, kind of?
Well, I started paying more attention because I recognized that this was the game and you're going to have to find something to do. There's a decision tree coming. And I remember listening to my parents talking about a unit trust that was going up and how much they were making in the run-up of the 1980s market. And they would check the price in the newspaper and comment to each other. And, I don't tend to listen when parents talk to me. I tend to listen when they talk either about me to someone else or talk to someone else about something, because I think that's the good stuff I want to hear. And I was noticing that, things were going quite interesting. 100% interested in how is it that my dad goes to work every day, and he used to drive from Johannesburg to Pretoria, which was a 45-minute drive in each way. They used to be considered long traveling, by the way, in the day. Nowadays, people just crossing London spend an hour and a half. But let's park that one for a minute. It was a better part of a 60-kilometer distance. Maybe I just want to get to that point where I can leverage myself into that position where I can be smart with capital rather than smart of hard of toil. And I ascribe that to inherent laziness and the seek of everything shiny and glittery and gold. So it wasn't particularly noble, my start in any way.
And looking back, what's been the biggest hurdle you've had to overcome in your career so far?
Emotions and the ups and downs of being oversized. I think that the death knell for beginners and even intermediaries are certainty, conviction, and lack of money management. When you experience certainty and conviction, you still aim for that Ferrari trade. You still aim, you oversize. You still think, everybody else should have 3-4% maximum stop loss, maybe 1% if they've got a lot of trades. I can do 10, 12, I'll swing a bit for the bleachers. I'll take the knock if I'm wrong. I'm sure I'm right, that kind of mentality. So when you add greater risk in losses to your stop loss location, you invariably add more volatility to your outcomes, and that gives you much higher highs and lows. The slow dough and the steady dough is the best dough. The fast to come is the fast to leave. And without establishing a foundation and steady progress, you don't build a good house. You've got to lay foundations. And that was process, method, and money management. And our particular methodology provides position sizing with a maximum amount of loss, all pre-calculated. So many people are so enthusiastic about a move, they wade in, only to find out that having waded in, they should now think about it. The market starts moving against them, and then they think, how much am I taking as a loss here? That's quite a bit more already than I've already thought. Well, it could still be right if this, that, and that happen. I'll hang on a little longer, and then it becomes a pain contest. There's machismo.
Mhm.
and it becomes a pain contest. How much hurt can you take? You must bow to a market. I was body surfing today with a little hand pad that I body surf with. The waves are the boss. You don't have any control over what's happening. You get tumble dried, and that's the end of the story. You have to bow to the bigger master in terms of some of these things. And too often, people are in the early days particularly are too convinced they're right, and then convince themselves it's just that they entered at the wrong time and they should just wait around. All those forces they saw are all gone, and this is part of the conviction. And
Mhm.
I never trade narratives anymore, and in fact that was something I gave up fairly early. But most people like a story.
Yeah.
Everybody is sold on a story. Every great salesman is a storyteller, and everyone sold on a story, the details and the narratives, and that's why, and everything. In many instances, the facts, if there be any facts to the story, and it's not just manufactured narrative, are usually baked into the price already, because by
Yeah.
the time you hear it, it's not nearly as relevant if it was factual in the first place. So a couple of quick thoughts for you and for pending traders.
It's kind of like Nvidia last summer. The CEO was dumping his stock, and you get the news article maybe a week later, but that's already reflected in the price chart. So I think that's spot on, Francis. I really like what you said there. And then, so you've mentored over 500 students, and just touching back on the most common mistake would probably be
Sorry,
what
yeah,
you just explained.
sizing.
So,
I think it's quite a few more than that. We just say our number because we look at our current community size and a little bit of the fall off of the last year and a half. So I've actually been doing
okay.
this for a very long time. It's not an ego contest in any way. The key things for why newbies fail: a
Mhm.
lack of a holistic method, number one.
Mhm.
That means you need all the aspects of the trade, and you need to have done it when you are dispassionately disengaged prior to entry. The problem that happens that we highlight is the minute somebody has entered, you become a cheerleader for your trade and you become hot for your trade. That means, you marry it. And suddenly everybody else's wife is ugly and yours is the most beautiful. And that's what happens with the stock. And they've actually shown this, that news articles that undermine your hypothesis, you diminish and belittle and say,
Mhm.
yes, there's a little bit of that, but I don't see that having too much of an impact. And ones that are highly supportive of your narrative, you say, but that's going to be a key driver. So inherently, once you've decided, it is no longer science. So my father was an engineer. So process is something I understand. Method is something I understand. I'll give you a fun story if you've got a minute. There's a guy who was a father of someone I was at school with. And he runs many, many franchises all over the country here in South Africa. And he wasn't an accountant, but he was an engineer and he was very process focused. And he went and learned accountancy because he wanted to know the matrices he wanted to know for the restaurant business. He had franchises of restaurant businesses. And he turned into one of the best operators just by instituting absolute method and a knower of what people can do well and what they can't do. He actually took a very well-established chain here and said to them, there's too much kitchen space. They don't need that amount of space to work. It'll actually reduce error if you reduce it, and we can get another X number of seats in our dining area
Oh,
for
wow.
peak hours, because restaurants are quite peaky, as you'll appreciate. You
Mhm.
have your lunch run and your evening run, or if you're a morning place, you get that. So actually, you can suddenly have a shortage of peaking, not be able to take that revenue, and then you can stand around empty in between meal times
Mhm.
with just a few people kicking around coming in for a coffee or something. So all these things really, really matter, and how few employees you can run it while still being efficient, keeping them busy so that there's no device watching time and all of this. And he was just an absolute legend at process in the restauranteering business. And then he also understood the food, the formula well, and then he started integrating his own supply chain, which he felt was better. And some of them got assumed by some of the franchises. So he didn't only have one franchise. So you're talking about a man who actually has, I wouldn't even like to say how many restaurants that he owns, but they're all part of chains, which originally started formulas that the chains now come to him before they release major changes. He's such a good process engineer. Now, that's what HVF method aims to do for your trading, but
Mhm.
people have to learn to appreciate the really successful franchise operators in that food space are process engineers as well. And they
Mhm.
know how to manage people. They know how to do a lot of other things incredibly well, but they get process, they get income, they get money, and they know how to do it. And by the way, he often takes over failing franchises, restaurants, and regularly flips them. But let me give you another very important parallel that goes with it. If he opens a new store and takes a franchise with something and does everything right by it and sets everything up, he's happy with the income group, the catchment area, everything, and he does a proper launch and he does everything according to his process. If he hasn't got an acceptable take-up curve by 6 months, he closes it, shuts it down, moves the staff into other restaurants, and will not engage further with the site. In other words, he never lets a bleeding loss kill the profitability of his business. This is such a key lesson that occurs in trading. And you sometimes think, well, I can afford it. All the other restaurants are pumping and doing well. What if there's about to be a downturn? This is one of the areas that's most affected. And you're getting an early message because you happen to have a lot of IT people in your catchment area, and the tech companies are laying off, or whatever the case may be, but there's going to be a contagion. Soon it'll affect all your restaurants. You don't want to be loading up right now. He'll close that damn store. So it's got to be, it's not expected to blow the doors off the hinges in the first day, the first week, the first month. He has a curve for it, everything. You're talking about somebody who's reduced to process. Now, what I'm saying to you is he's done it with a lot of experience. He didn't get there all on his own. He's made a lot of change and he grew into that role. But if you see him operate at that level now, he is a money maker, multi-century millionaire. But he knows exactly what he does, and he's developed all his systems to bring it in. Now, think about being that person in the marketplace, the trading market, and you truly cannot allow bleed out trades that you love, that are pet projects, that you had a little fundamental gut hunch about, that Tesla's going to go bust, or it's going to go to $1,500 or whatever it does, and that you want to be able to show that you were in it the whole way, and little social proofs and egos and moments like that. If it isn't right, it isn't meeting the criteria, if it's giving a loss when you expected a gain, it's behind, you're probably wrong. The first loss is the best loss. You close the damn thing. One of my best things that changed in me in the last 10, 15 years of trading is I'm eminently comfortable with closing something with a red number, because that red number only gets worse. If it meets criteria, that no longer do it. And with our HVF setup, the lovely thing about our setup is it's a volatility squeeze. So we often 180 degrees wrong, and I don't care for wrong and right. I really don't. In Twitter, and I do a YouTube channel, and it's part of our entertainment, and it's also, people find their way to us through that. Oh, you were so wrong on that. It's like, yes, and so what?
It's part of the game.
And I was out quickly, because in a volatility compression way, where we think, okay, crypto might go breaking up. Let's say now it's going down. As soon as I see that it's not doing the up, I take the very tight loss, and I can even have time to get short. And I could have been wrong in my initial view, flipped the view, and ended up making money. And somebody else was right and didn't make money. So forget about being right. A lot of people that are being right are people that just say, here's my opinion.
Well,
if you aren't expressing that opinion, it's worthless. I can ask a homeless person outside my door here what's his opinion, and if he's determined to give me an answer, he'll give me one, and he may not have any education. He could be incredibly smart. But the point of the view, if you're not trading, your opinions mean nothing because you haven't cared to back them. If you are trading, you should hold them lightly, and the market can show you to be inaccurate on that, and you should be prepared to let them go. And the nice thing about our setup, as I was describing, is we don't get over-married directionally. We're actually looking at the setup and say there's a volatile move coming. On balance of probabilities from our assessment, we are biasing, say, to the long side. However, should the market turn, so we'll say something like crypto might go up. Right now, it's selling off. We will have taken a very small loss quickly, and then we might even be short, because the setup is suggesting there's something volatile coming. And once it's taken out a certain level, it's confirmed to us it's not an upside move. It's actually going to be a downside move. And you can make money. So the goal is to make money, not be right in a public forum where everyone thinks you're a god. Those are two mutually exclusive things. Traders should be wrong regularly and should be closing quickly on losses. So a key mathematical construct for successful trading will be your losses, the degree of carry by time of your winning trades should be lengthy, and your losses should be over quickly. And our setup and our methodology determines where the stop loss, that is, means the view is incorrect, changes. We always have a level. At what level do we accept we are wrong? That allows you to size and manage losses. And without that, and so many people enter the trading game doing that. And that is a bit like the guy I described not knowing how much he paid for his meat and his burgers and how much it's cost him to make a burger, and running a massive, 50% off on bring the family and eat and order cheeseburger, and actually be filling his store on loss-making activity, which if you want to help people find where your store is and create the habits, and that's part of your plan, great. If that's how you intend to run your business on an ongoing basis, you're going to be selling $10 notes for $5. You're on a hiding for nothing in the long term. So yeah, that's another key point I'll leave with you, because there's a.
And I like the story you told me about the restaurant guy. That makes a lot of sense. It sounds like he's systematic. He's paying attention to details, and he knows when he's wrong, which sounds like the elements of a great.
Dispassionate, won't hold on to losers, manages the process, and the people fall into place. And if you keep having a complaint, he knows which store's the problem. He rotates people. He has optionality. He puts his best guys in, quickly sees where the problem is. They tell him, this guy over here is not, they're not turning out that correctly. The person gets trained up some more, or if he's, belligerent, he gets moved out. Doesn't tolerate and moves on. So it's this feedback mechanism. The markets are actually a feedback mechanism. You have no control over the feedback mechanism on how the world is operating. You only control your responses to a stimulus as derived from that feedback mechanism. And you can freak out and you can start negative programming, which is what I did in the early days. It always seemed to know where my stop losses were. The market hates me. It does just enough to come out. I didn't have sufficient process. The minute I had my process in the HVF method, I just felt like a lot luckier trader. And instead of just getting stopped out on something that ended up running, I started selling highs because I had targets in above the price behavior. The minute I wasn't chasing momentum, I stopped blaming the broker for ripping me off. Now, I'm not going to tell you every broker is perfect operator and that there aren't issues and counterparty risks and certain things that happen at the broker level, but brokers became much less of a problem. I stopped feeling like I was being screwed. And you go through that process. You've got to go through that process, and many people wilt on that journey.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Most traders give up within 2 years. And I saw another study from Copenhagen University that was like an MRI scan of a professional trader versus an amateur, and it says that they have lower amygdala activation in their brain. So I guess after the market humbles you enough, you kind of get less reactive to these losses. Even if it's red, I'll just cut it because it's only going to get redder.
You're anesthetized to the thrills, because the thrills and spills are the overarching adrenal aspect that is not method and is invariably counterproductive. So by avoiding that and being largely dispassionate, okay, I'm up quite a bit today, but are we approaching our targets? Well, the take profit's already there. Stop loss is where it should be. I'm not trailing it. I'm not doing anything. Leave the market to do what it do. It seems things are in hand. Dispassionate, walk away. So dispassionate positioning, stoicism, not feeling too sorry for yourself, too hurry, low emotionality. And actually, for people that trade their own money, and this goes contrary to urban myth and legend, good biology and health. If you are a guy who's smashing 6 tequilas in some competitive drinking game the night before with friends, and running around the nightclubs and getting home at 4, and then you're waking up the next day, 100% biology dictates and will dominate and spoil mentality. So there's a thinking that you can brute force everything mentally. And some people have come and said, but I'm smart. I should be able to do this. I have a XYZ IQ or whatever the case may be. You need stable living. Some of the best fund managers were triathletes, married, 2 or 3 kids, wore gray suits. They weren't flamboyant. They weren't anything. But you hear about the flamboyant stuff. Those are usually brokers who had a big year and lots of flow and are getting commissions. And then they're going to stripper joints and snorting cocaine, doing the whole hoorah. There is no way that you actively, responsibly manage money if you are toxic.
Yeah.
And most of my worst days in the early period were when I overtrade in the gym and stayed up late at night. I don't do heavy fuels of any kind, really, but even having too much coffee, I actually have cut it out. I have spells where I let it back in for various reasons, and then I cut it out again, because you need dispassionate consistency of approach and just to apply a method consistently.
I'm feeling a little bit guilty because I just drank 3 cups of coffee. So maybe I should cut that out a little bit.
Well, some people have a different reaction. I'm quite reactive to caffeine. Some people can't out of bed and all of that, but I would still say there's a nerve-based stimulation there, which
Yeah.
will amplify those amygdala responses that you were referring to in the two
Mhm.
brains of the new trader, woohoo, excitement,
Yeah.
and the stoic everyday guy
Okay,
who's
that
been there for years. Yeah,
and I like what you said. Those hedge fund managers are managing money, which money is pretty much energy or life force, right? So
correct.
if they're not managing their energy properly over the long run,
You don't get to manage other people's. You quickly
yeah,
get eliminated and you're an underperformer and you get eliminated. And even if you're pretty talented and you have a good run, but you're prone to sudden, blowouts, you get eliminated.
yeah,
Because actually, if there's two lines and one goes really high up, but the journey there is like this, and the other one goes only half as high, but is incredibly stable, the risk adjusted reward and the reliability overvalues the stability, and volatility sees things go down in valuation. And volatility, as you know, in options is a key part of the pricing structure. How
yeah.
wild is the underlying? And because people are risk averse, and stability, when you're giving money to someone else to manage, a steady 18%, 11%, 3%, 9% a year on a big fund portfolio is far more reliable than somebody who does 128%, but then loses 46% in the first half of the next year.
Exactly. Yeah.
People don't know what they got, even though you're higher up, having done 180% and halving it, than the guy who was delivering 5, 11, 15. They just can't see the relationship.
Mhm.
It's a bit like having a supermodel wife, nice in the beginning, but then she's blowing all your money. She's never able to cook. She doesn't want to do any of this. She's super happy to see you someday when you come from work, and then she's schizophrenically violent towards you the next day. I mean, listen, after a while, you just want a little bit of consistency.
You're talking about
Uh,
the crazy hot scale.
I
I'll
think
put that up
I
on the
think I,
screen.
I think I stumbled into that one.
All right, so we're taking a 180 right now. So Francis, I gotta say I really admire your honest takes on Twitter, and that's why I wanted to bring you on. And so for this next question, they say history is written by the victors. What was the first event or conspiracy that made you start questioning the world around you and start trusting your intuition more?
I started early, I have to say. This, I would say, I probably have a little bit of gene for, because I have very intelligent brothers, and neither of them seem to have the same skepticism that I have towards people that put forward their altruistic goals. There's
Yeah.
that Eastern European saying, I stumbled on it, I think, today. For those that really want to be much richer than the rest of the people, become a people servant, a public servant. That's the view of public service, is self-enrichment. It's everything the word suggests inverted.
Hmm.
Serve thyself at the expense of the people. And, I saw enough. So I'm a pattern recognition guy
Hmm.
by technical chartism and by conduct, behavior. And I've recognized you get the society that you incentivize. And the incentives are all misaligned. And of course, the people who seek power are often the most psychopathic, fraudulent, and self serving, because that's why they're seeking power in the first place. So I was inherently skeptical. Literally since the 80s, I've been expecting a debt-based related 1980s, I'm talking about, because
Hmm.
of a big commentator on a life insurance company called Donnie Gordon, who's now passed, who said the maths will see something come to an end. They were way too early, of course. I think
Yeah.
that's happening now, by the way. So let me reframe something that's current events for you, applying the cynicism of worldview that I have. And that doesn't make me a mean guy or a negative guy. Trump, he was a president in 2016. He wasn't talking like he is today. He was supposed to be the businessman guy. Some people say, oh, he got distracted by the Russia thing and all of that. He allowed himself to get distracted. He's suddenly showing up, and he wants peace. He wants the Chinese military and the Russian military to spend half, and it will do the same for America. He's
Hmm.
throwing NATO under the bus because America pays 70% of it. And
Hmm.
I say all these things are happening because we had a debt-based collapse and America can no longer afford it.
Yeah.
Previously, you were paying on it. It's like me, the big wheeler dealer, multimillionaire. We're meeting for drinks. I'm putting it on my Amex card every time. Have yourself a triple Jack Daniels. Course, order the snacks menu. Carry on. Everyone in the room, ring the bell. Have whatever you want. All on my tab. Let's smash it every night. I'm living like that. That was America.
Yeah.
The Great Gatsby dude. The wealthy playboy and driving the Morgan, ringing the bell and laying it on for everyone, parties, and you know what, the Great Gatsby dude. And then the depression hit. That was the roaring 20s I was referring to as an era. But suddenly you see it happen. And I say to everybody, our greatest call that we get the least credit for was in 2020, in August, saying the debt markets turned. And this is the most important. It's going to affect everything you see and read that you haven't joined the dots for. Why is there an Elon Musk? Why is he running a doggy efficiency? Why is Trump, when he was quite aggressive towards China, more peaceful towards Russia, in his first suddenly saying, hey, China, let's cut our expenditure together? Because they can't do it anymore. Why can't they do it anymore? They had a bottomless credit card called the US Treasury market. They could churn them out at any rate, and there were always buyers. There was the petrodollar. There was everything else. There was every nation queued up and lined up to buy it. And then they weaponized the SWIFT system under Biden. We had the CV19 splurge of debt. And you had a final blow-off in valuation of debt. And I said the escalator of 40 years is going to be followed with an elevator of 5 years. And in the 3.5 years from that call, debt lost 50%. And the key part of that, as an asset class, as a value, someone has to hold. You need to think of it as a house that's paying you rent. Debt is the foundation of the system, not fiat. It comes later. It's a layer up. Not the stock market. That's a whole bunch of layers up. The whole thing is borrowing money into existence. And yes, the forex markets are the biggest by trade volume because people are shifting all the time between one and the other, but they all stand off debt. A country's view, you need to tokenize this almost and bring a crypto analogy to explain this to everybody. A country's view, how well do you live within your means? Okay, so the income you get from your tax take, which is corporate tax, personal tax, all the taxes, VAT, if you have it, etc. And how much of that do you spend, and do you overspend on it? And then how much do you sell to other nations more than they sell to you? So when you issue a debt instrument, somebody owns that debt instrument and gets a yield. Think of it almost as if it's a house. And fiat is actually the token that gets issued on that house that says Donald Trump owns this house. And your fiat goes down in value when your outlook of your economy goes down. There's unemployment. You're going to have an assets price collapse. And your debt is no longer highly valued because you spend too much. There's too much of it around. It's no longer a safe asset. It could fail. Your token for your nation state or your house that is less lettable because it's been trashed so many times, you never clean it, you allow the breakage to accumulate, it's a Detroit drug den, you're not getting the same income anymore. And this is the whole concept. Debt turned. Debt, remember, is a stabilizer asset. It's not a high yield performance asset. It used to go up in the 40-year bull market. It went up incrementally, very low each year as the rates got cut, and the yield got reduced as the rates got cut as well. So its capital appreciation was super slow, and then also what it paid you in income got less and less until eventually the yield on the 10-year was 0.3%. How well do you think you'll live on all your wealth earning you 0.3% a year? Could you live a day on it, a week? If I put all your, let's say you're a millionaire in cash. What's 0.3% of that? Could you live on 30 grand as a millionaire liquid? That's less than 3 grand a month in the US. What kind of living will you have on that? You'll be on about 2,500, and you'll still have to pay tax on your income stream. So the debt market call is the foundational call. It explains everything that is happening. That is the base of the pyramid. What Trump is doing is a function of his handlers making it very clear to them that they do not have the money anymore, and people aren't going to accept the same level of debt being added to the credit card anymore. The Amex has gone from a black Amex to a good old ordinary blue one. You've got to pay at the end of every month. You can't roll it up every 6 months. This is the Great Gatsby dude seeing the depression coming. They can't live anymore. The American military will be right-sized. Why do you think they're negotiating for peace and less expenditure? They can't afford it. And everyone is going, yay, Trump, he wanted peace, and Biden was a warlord. He didn't want peace in 2016. He was provoking China. He wants it now. What's changed? You can't afford not to. That's what changed. So all this nuance of he's a good man and he wants a peaceful world and he wants this. BS. It served America to be the power of the world and to bully everybody else, to run the economic hitman model, to flip legitimate governments wherever they want, throw money at you, getting rid of the Russian-friendly Ukrainian leader and every African nation and South American nation whenever it suited them to get the power they wanted. And they just paid, they bought people off, they send mercenaries, they would stimulate rebel rousings, etc., etc. Now we find our morality. Now we can't afford to be the bully boy anymore. Now we can't pay for it. We find our morality. Too little, too late. They can't turn this oil tanker around. And that is the true understanding of the system of the politicians. You know, now they tell you how much was being stolen by Biden and all of them. If you really cared, why haven't you arrested him?
Yeah.
Why haven't you arrested his son? Why haven't you arrested Fauci? Why haven't you in 2016, everyone pro-Trump was Hillary Clinton.
Francis, would you say this is like a Hegelian dialect, like two
100%.
Wings of the same bird? Because I see people.
That's the left hand criticizing the right hand.
Yeah, and they're both working against you. And you know, I heard you talking about the Bolshevik Revolution, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So during the Bolshevik Revolution, there was something called Operation Trust, and this was a Bolshevik counterintelligence operation run from 1921 to 1926, and it was aimed at neutralizing opposition by creating a false impression that a powerful group of military leaders had organized to stop the communist takeover. Now, maybe you've heard of like QAnon and these white hats. How, like, for me, that sounds like utter BS. And I don't know, maybe you give your thoughts on that.
No, I 100% agree with everything you said there. And the notion that you voted and got your guy in there. They're going to throw you lots of meat to the baying masses that have now there's only two genders anymore. Thanks for nothing. I knew that all along. I wasn't participating in the Ponzi scheme. What about the injection that came out underneath him? That's also exposed. Let's talk more about that. So there's no one playing for you, freedom. People are selected, not elected. And the one hand will beat up on the other hand. Bad right hand. You were so evil. And we've had it the other way. You know, we've got to remember after a series of Bush double presidencies and the warlord, and finally we got Obama in, hope and change. He represents, all races, opportunity, and all of this. They'll sell you a new dream and every time. So you've seen the red hand beat up the blue hand, and the blue hand, it's just pivoting. You're being bounced between a wall that is red and blue, like a ping pong ball, and you're being moved towards totalitarianism.
Yeah.
In fact, I should do it the other way, downwards. The gravity pull down. And you'll be attracted to the red guy and then repelled from the blue guy. Weren't they disgusting? Hunter Biden and drugs and underage women and prostitution and all of this. And then you'll be, Donald Trump, yes, and he's cleaning up the government, drain the swamp. And then you find out he's created the new swamp. When they cut, they're going to cut service. Lots of people are going to lose jobs. The military will be cut. Everything has to be cut. They can't issue the amount of debt that they want to anymore. They've got 9 trillion rollovers alone. So who do you think, when they do need, and services to the citizens are going to be cut? Americans are going to be paying more, getting less, because you've been living the life of a 250 grand a year guy while you were earning 100 grand. And no one stopped you. You could get the payments for the 250 grand guy's car. You could get the 250 grand guy's house, literally spending more than double. And the problem is, once you start cutting all the people, they go onto welfare and they become a new cost, but just somewhere else. So you cut the welfare and that goes down. And just when everybody needs an umbrella, all the banks are taking the brollies back that they gave you when you didn't need it. And just when you needed access to credit, you won't get it. Just when you need it, all of this will go down. And the value of property, once you get an unemployment spike. I mean, I just did a dollar vigilante presentation, and there was one slide that I put up, and I will show you, which just illustrates exactly this, because I'm talking about unemployment. So I'll just show you this one. And maybe there's a couple of interesting points there that some people will enjoy. So this has all come from your question around, how you see the world and why were you, kind of a bit skeptical generally. If I show you this chart, there's one chart over here in the bottom right. This is the yield curve inversion, the orange one. Every time it's 100% indicator. If it inverts, that means goes below the black line. That's the 0 line over there that I'm drawing. That means when it reverts, you're about to have a recession. It's 100% indicator. If it happens, it's happening. It's never failed. So
Wow.
it
Okay.
inverted there. There was your 80s recession when it reverted. It inverted here in dot-com era. There was your 01, 02, 03 recession over there. It inverted 06, went back up 07, 08. There was your subprime crash. The green line is jobs, unemployment going up. So each recession, unemployment up. Makes sense to you, makes sense to me. Unemployment up. You had the super instant spike. That
Hmm.
was the very specialist situation of CV-19. And then you
Hmm.
reverted all the way back down. The curve has reverted. You're getting to the point where we get this gray band again. In fact, it's my opinion you're already in recessionary conditions and have been for quite a while.
Yeah, they changed the definition, didn't they? I
Of
heard.
course they did.
Yeah.
This is again, another reason to be skeptic of politicians.
Yeah,
They're
and
all about
all the numbers are baked too. I think we can all agree on that. And Francis, I just want to say, so you said a debt-based collapse into technocratic control is a mathematical certainty. Um, I just, we see Trump's policy so far. I think we agree that it's a different side of the same coin. Um, but I want to know, what do you think about all this gold talk, Fort Knox audit, the sovereign wealth fund, and maybe perhaps the Bitcoin strategic reserve? Do you have any thoughts on how to connect those dots? And do you think that Elon Musk and Trump are just shrinking the government so they can usher in some sort of like smaller AI controlled government that's more with less privacy, more control, but less actual human workers? What do you think about that?
We certainly say we're going into surveillance finance. Privacy is
Hmm.
the biggest victim in the last 2 decades. If you
Yeah.
want to talk about the gift of technology, let me talk about the carnage of technology. And the single most carnage inducing aspect is your personal privacy.
Hmm.
You would be shocked if you got a high enough powered dark state agent to have a day's bit of desk research, how much information he would collect on you. Personal, that some of which you wouldn't want to be public. So I won't even bother to give examples.
Yeah.
Not because you're criminal or anything, but just as a normal human being, you wouldn't
Yeah.
want. And so the secrecy thing, the privacy thing, they really want it to be over. In fact, early on in Facebook, Zuckerberg said privacy is over, get over it.
And now
And
he's
then,
got this cool guy, like,
yeah,
he's
now they're
trying to
trying to
make a.
soften that message a little bit. It was a little bit, that was the cold bucket approach. And that was when he was most honest,
Yeah.
truthfully. Now they kind of go, yeah, yeah, no, we do this whole WhatsApp encryption and everything. They're
And he's
killing
at
the
the UFC
Palestinian
and
with the WhatsApp. Peter Thiel's giving the Israeli Defense Force all the information they need to
Mhm.
directly. So that's a foregone conclusion. There was two parts to your question, though. Are we heading into a surveillance finance? The mathematical certainty is the debt-based collapse. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how much Elon and Doggy and Trump remove in waste, although I like the idea of removing waste. They're not doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it now because they have to. They should have been doing this for Republican governments ago, but let's forget that. Better late than never. Some people will say, well, the problem is the crash they will induce and the system they will bring in by plan. You're being led on a journey. You think this is awesome. All the leeches are being flushed out.
Yeah.
Watch what it leads to. And when it comes to the service delivery, that all these inefficient people that were sucking up a lot of money and doing a bad job, watch what replaces it. So you're going to end up with a privatization service contract where you'll have a corporation like Halliburton or BlackRock
Hmm.
handing special suite contracts to do the service of collecting dustbins, let's say, in all the various areas. And it'll be owned by some family member of the Trump clan or Rockefeller, clan. And you'll actually pay a much higher price than you thought. And rather than it saving you, you're going to have to make an additional contribution to have someone pick up your trash and
Yeah.
remove it. There'll be a green tax because, you got plastic in there, even though you didn't ask for that plastic. That's Amazon and all the technical oligarchy that keeps
Hmm.
stuffing packaging on everything you buy. You would have been quite happy to have it more lightly packaged. You ordered a dumbbell and they put 5 layers. It doesn't get broken in transit, but they'll still put 5. So you'll be paying for the bearing of that and the tax on that and the tax on this. And these fascist corps will actually do the service delivery that you're about to lose when they
Yeah.
start cutting out all the government. But they'll also cut some inefficiency out of it because governments are inherently inefficient. But then they'll slowly start awarding that. They'll call them private public sector service agreements, and various
Yeah.
other things. seen this movie before with Tony Blair in the UK and everything else. And the service quality gets less, and the corporations that have to deliver do more. And then the poor serf that does the work, that's picking up your trash, will be on the newly tested and legally robust Uber 0-hour contract that if he's sick one day, he doesn't get paid for that day. It'll be shocking working conditions. It'll be an absolute extraction racket, and the CEO will be making 500 times what the average employee will make, and he'll be a family member of the cartel. That's how this plays out. That's cynical Francis telling you how it turns out. You ask the question, and they make a hero out of these guys. Oh, but they're doing good work, and these are the first people that are new brooms sweeping clean and all of this. So they built so much political capital in so many people's mind. Go Trump, USA, great again, that they can absolutely smash you when the recession comes. And they said, yeah, but if you had that, you got to also accept this. You know, the immigrants coming through the border, the only way we can stop this is if we get a biometric ID. Oh, the immigrants coming through the border and spoiling the voting. The only way you can stop that, you know, you've got to have this digital ID, biometrics and everything so that you can vote. Oh, you know, crime thing and all this hate speech and the racism and the anti-Semitism on the internet. The only way we can stop that is every time you log into the internet, you do a biometric. We know it's you. If you do nothing wrong, you've got nothing to worry about. We're going to just eliminate the bad guys for your safety, making it a more sanitized, cleaner place for you to play. Like hell. Find which groups, just like you had the IRS doing investigations on largely Republican states and in certain areas. It will be weaponized and it will be intrusive and you will have no protection. By the way, a couple of other things about how interest to retain. This is the head of the military who's been picked by Trump to head the military. Mm-hmm. And I just took one quote out of a video of him talking where he was talking direct to the people because the mainstream media will lie and are controlled by leftists. So, they always feed the left versus right argument. It's divide and conquer. They keep you, Punch and Judy show with the guy, with the policeman with the truncheon hitting the poor vagrant in the street. They keep you, they keep you in this whole pathetic, it's not in our interest to retain individuals whose contributions are not mission critical. That is McKinsey management consultants speak for massive right sizing for the military industrial complex. Mm-hmm. So I even did in another slide, I showed F-35s rotting in a desert. Oh, yeah. Because they're such a lemon of a plane and they have such high costs to maintain. They need about 9 hours of maintenance for every 1 hour they fly. Mm-hmm. That's your future with the copper wire and the silver wire stripped out. And your tax on that debt that is drowning you, you paid 1.1 billion for 10 of those planes. And you can imagine how many they have all over the place in all their various Air Force guises. And that was the NATO spending, by the way. This is why America is going to be cutting loose from Europe. You're an expensive friend to come around. First of all, you're the guy showing up at the bar, buying everybody drinks. Of course, everyone says, yes, sure. You're the guy, every time you go over sports day out or you go a little bit fishing, he's paying for the best boat and getting everybody's rods and bait, and it's all paid for and they just show up. Europe was paying less than 30% for NATO. But you're the one who wanted it. You were the superpower. You're the one who wanted it. You were splashing the cash and everything. You never made them pay the means. You built a cartel of hangers-on. This is what happened to Mike Tyson's millions. Hangers-on, go bust. You paid for everything. You bought Ferrari Testarossas. Whoever was in the house bought a meal. We got dough to burn. This is what America did. They were the great Gatsby, Leonardo DiCaprio guy, splashing it on. And you should never have been paying this amount. You should have made them pay more for their own defense. That Trump has said for a while, and I give him credit for. But I mean, the numbers are here. There's a pie chart. It's quite clear. This is an American. Europe is a 51st state, or 52nd if Canada is the 51st state. It's just an aircraft carrier so that American defense can be there. Since World War II, America's had troops in Germany.
Yeah, well, they didn't let Germany have an army, to be fair to them. So.
But they have now, and they're still there. That's what it costs you when you want to do that. Yeah. You want to have a girlfriend in every port. You're going to be paying for penthouse apartments for 10 different mistresses. Good luck. I hope you got the dough for that lifestyle. I'm sure it's a nice lifestyle to have. It may get expensive. All that couple of weeks that you're in town. There's simpler ways to get those needs satisfied. And this is what I see. Largest military by miles. That's everybody else, the next 10. And that's the total of the world. This is the histogram next to it. And you wonder why he's going to America. The second biggest cost is the defense budget. Right now, it's the interest. And you know who that goes to? The banking cartel. And he's not asking the banking cartel to save the American people, is he? The interest gets paid to the owners of the debt. And at 6%. In fact, Trump is going to want lower interest rates and a weaker dollar. He's not allowed to say that because he's a macho man in a business and America first, but he needs right now a weaker dollar. He wants manufacturing. Never. Economics 101. Never give up all of your manufacturing capability or a large part thereof.
How do they
services, financial services? Here's a new derivative tool. London and UK went that way. They have a very low local manufacturing nowadays. They're even closing out their own farmers. You import just about everything. Good luck. You now have to live with your own means. Good luck. They listed the UK is worse situation. Europe and the UK are going to go down and right size along with America. But America are trying to do the right things at the 11th hour. Too late to turn the oil tanker when you see the lighthouse 100 meters in front of you. It is, but at least they're trying to do the right thing now. The UK is almost full speed ahead. Damn nice. And Europe too. So they are doubling down on we'll send troops for Ukraine. On whose bill? On whose lives and on whose bill are you going to do it when Mr. 70% walks out the goddamn room? Who do you think you are? It's like me calling out John Jones to fight him on the UFC. Oh, well, wait till he feels the force. Oh, well, you haven't seen me with my shirt off.
So, but basically what you're saying is they're trying to pack 50 years of fiat debasement back and all these economies intertwining and developing under fiat. How do you put the genie back into the bottle? I just don't see how they're going to do that.
You don't. You get to a point where a heroin addict is consuming 10x what would kill a normal man because he's conditioned his body to do that. That if you or I took it, we would just be out, OD, done. And you now have to wean that guy off what he absolutely needs just to have a normal existence.
Yeah.
Not to be, I mean, sorry, I went to Miami. The roads were full of rubber carcasses. They were filthy. The concrete, you were bouncing along when you're doing 120. The infrastructure needs, your airports are terrible. Go visit Singapore, Qatar's airport. Kennedy, Jesus, LaGuardia. I hate going into them. They like Jan Smuts in Joburg 20 years ago. They're even better.
Yeah. Miami's highways, the highways in Miami look like a little kid's Hot Wheel track. Like they're going all over.
There's carcasses of tires, there's debris, the seams in the concrete, all of this. And you're the banner boy and the major nation of capitalism. And last time Trump came in, I'm going to do infrastructure. We traded an upside HVF on copper. It absolutely mooned on the Trump infrastructure play. We saw none of that.
Yeah.
None of that. You got CV19 and you got everything else. And I think he knew that. He would have known before. So that was his whole gig. Now it's going to be infrastructure. You can't spend. Let me tell you, Trump's entire presidency is not going to be about how much he's spending. It's going to be how much he's going to cut from existing spending. And how much little of that will he reallocate elsewhere. And as I say, the America needs infrastructure spending, but you'd have to put that on the credit card that's being pulled. And no one wants to buy the debt anymore.
Do you believe that we're on the verge of a major capital rotation?
Well, so going back to why I said this is the most important call, this correction here in the debt market means it's no longer a reserve asset. It was treated as a reserve asset. It's in people's pensions. The pension funds will be not able to make their alpha to pay what they promise people. The US is due to run out of money on its welfare Medicaid projections before 2030. And some were saying 2026 on the most optimistic assumptions of growth.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it's mathematically impossible. You don't have an Armageddonist. They have to have a reset. It's not an optional. And this is that asset class. So what it means is you had one thing that you treated as a pillar holding up the front of your home that is crumbled.
Yeah.
And you removed gold entirely because it took away the discipline. It was too hard a taskmaster. And now you're trying to put it back. All these gold flying into America, they are rampantly. So you also asked about this audit story.
Oh, yes.
They are going to put on some form of show, which is designed to make America look robust.
Hmm.
Let's be clear. If they open the door and it was empty and they go, oh, fuck, then slam the door shut. They're not going to do that, are they? They are, it's going to be showbiz and it's going to be orchestrated. You don't know who owns that, how many
Yeah.
times it's hypothecated, under what terms it was sent from Switzerland and London there. Is it really yours or is it being loaned for a little show and tell before it gets flown back on the quiet and the low? I wouldn't trust whatever you get put in front of you. Because unless you physically have scanned every bar and checked they're all there, and you can know for sure that there is no contract saying this must be returned to XYZ in X amount of time,
Hmm.
or you must pay the following, and that liability is detailed and covered, it's probably going to be a scam.
Yeah.
But it's designed to create confidence, and most of the normies and the pro-Trumpers, which so that you're going to have a lot of the center-right in ascendancy. And let's be clear, I'm a small government guy, but neither
Yeah.
parties have been small government.
No.
I would be naturally more Republican than Democrat, but I have no dogs in this fight. None of them work for you. And so you're going to get some sort of razzmatazz and show that says, actually, we're awesome. Look at all our gold. It's still there. So we've killed that conspiracy theory. Here it is. You've seen it for yourself. It's just dirty talk, making up mischief, a Russian or a Chinese lie or an Iranian lie or whomever. All you gold bugs, we've shown it's good and proper. And I mean, possession is only 9/10 of the law. If it leads back, why have we stolen? Why did we take 7 years to give Germany its gold back? There's enough reasons to believe nothing is as it seems. So
But
you're going to get a
Francis.
razzmatazz show, and I think the bankers will hit the gold price once they've
Hmm.
done it, as if to say, there, you don't need to hold it. There isn't a shortage. America has all its need. It's abundant. Didn't you see all those racks
Hmm.
with all those shiny yellow metals on it? And gold could have a technical pullback for a spell.
So
And
you
that's how
think
they
it's
try
to
to park
hit?
the genie.
So
Because
they want to
gold has got way
hit
too
the
many
price.
headlines recently.
So they want to hit the gold price, but and they also want to restore faith. But now let's take it a step further. Do you think they want to restore faith with this sovereign wealth fund and possibly these gold-backed bonds that Judy Shelton was talking about? Or is that,
Yes,
what do you think?
there's a couple of scenarios, and I've thought through all of them. They smack the paper price after they've done a razzmatazz show saying, you all of you bought this up on the basis there was shortage. It's all there, so you don't need to be owning gold. We've got tons of it.
Hmm.
And then the bankers smack the price, a bit of a manipulation setup, and it loses a few $100. The alternative is the reval. Now, I don't see the point in revaling at its current spot market because that's 800 billion. And you're spending $1 trillion in every 100 days. That's probably come a bit down, but it's going to take a long time to really get it down. So you would pay in total value at current spot price, you would have 1/4 worth of expenditure, and then it's gone. Then
Yeah.
it'll be gone if you used it.
So it'd
So
have
they
to be
don't want it
higher.
gone. They don't want it gone because they know gold is what gives people trust and confidence. So they want to keep the gold, but they want to create a derivative on it that makes some kind of proxy claim on the gold. So, and then you can play the derivative. And you must always watch. It's a standard game, and it's what Larry Finkelstein is planning with tokenization. They
Hmm.
will put a token on your house and on your car, and it'll be on the blockchain, and I could buy that token and own your home.
So those DOGE
Politics,
payments are going to be on the new system, you think?
I think there's a whole lot of digital creativity that will be coming in post this. The other thing is they could, if they were smart, if you were pursuing sound money principles, you would admit that the market has been adversely manipulated, hasn't been allowed to find its true price,
Hmm.
and you would upward value. The way you give America a long runway against its debt issue is you revalue the gold at around 100,000. At about 84,000, you would have about 40% of your debt backed by gold. So why not revalue it between 100 and 250,000? But I don't think they would do that. But I'm a
Yeah.
gold holder. I would love that. Of course I would. The other
Yeah.
problem is by doing it excessively. I don't mean it excessively. It's probably closer to a clear mark given the compounding devaluation of the dollar and its
Hmm.
issuance. When you have a quadrillion in the system, it's not the same system it was when there was only a few billion of dollars in circulation. It should go without saying. But that would actually mean the debt's no longer an issue. You have an asset countervailing it. They tie the debt to the asset for a while. So you
Hmm.
go like a Bretton Woodsy, the first window, when it was gold backed. And you just reset the clock to repeat the same scam on everybody again. There'll
Yeah.
be a Nixon moment again where you sever it and everyone has faith. There'll be dominant powers that will say, you can trust us. We've got the military. We got this. We're prudent, etc., etc. And you go, and the whole new generation has to go for in the whole new cycle. But the
Yeah.
best thing would be to hypervalue it which is probably just let it find its true valuation, given the
Yeah.
devaluation. And then you could argue that all of this, so that's how you weaken the dollar without creating inflation.
And what about silver in this case? So wouldn't those shorts get unleashed if gold gets revalued that high?
They would.
Yeah.
You would get a response out of silver. But just bear in mind, silver all the stages until such an event like that is to happen. There's an industrial component to platinum and silver, and we're in a wrecked consumer economy for reasons of recession that wasn't acknowledged, for reasons of many other things that are not being acknowledged, reasons of interest rates that making housing price unsustainable at their current levels. Many people are going to be forced sellers. You're going to have contagion coming. And of course, BlackRock will be a bottomless overdraft buyer, and then you'll rent your own home back at some point. And then you'll have an Amazon camera watching you, how often you have sex, toilet, and everything else to keep you safe from the bad guys. So they always
Oh
need
yeah.
they need a villain,
Yeah.
So that whole gig is without doubt coming. And there's nothing I've seen in how we've progressed that sees our freedoms increasing.
Trump is pushing more mRNA stuff. Like I saw a meme that said like Klaus Schwab, and it's like, tokenization, mRNA jabs, blah blah. It's like all the stuff, his talking points, and then it's like Trump is just repackaging all that. I have to find. I'll
Maybe
put the meme.
stand next to Larry Ellison and lets him talk about vaccinations for cancer.
Yeah, and
That
calls
caused a
Albert
super
Bourla a
boom
good guy.
Yeah, they caused a super boom in turbo cancer. So it's always an upsell. They ram a product you didn't want in. That creates contagion and a need for a second product. And you create a domino of second order effects that you maximize and continue to have an annuity of income whilst minimizing the population. It's a eugenics, it's an everything. So we live in a funny old world. In my skeptical worldview, and
Yeah.
that's okay. I live a lot safer and I make much better decisions for it. Someone will say, "Oh, you must be so real sad." I have a great life. I have an absolutely great life. I understand how the world works far better, and I have an awesome trading method, and I intend to trade my way through all of this and get insights that saw us call single-digit gold, that saw us call the Euro-Swiss franc collapse before the pigs nations even was a phrase, and called the peg fail later in 2015, that saw us profit from the bond market turn on shorts on the TLT, that saw macro calls that are actually monumental effects on people's lives. And the average American, I would want you out of your country because it's going to be a downdraft. Ask the British how it is once you lose your imperialist high,
Yeah.
how it pans out. They were the sick man of Europe for ages and ages. It was austerity. There was cutting back. They were paying off the Marshall Plan. So you turn into a welfare state with a big mortgage that has to be paid and rough, hard wages. And then you throw a bit of AI job replacement in that, you're going to have an unemployment boom as per the chart I was showing you. The next thing to drop coming out of that chart is the turn in the unemployment, the green line.
Mm-hmm.
Yield has
Yeah, I
already
see.
turned. It's the leading indicator. When we were talking about technical indicators and your trading right at the beginning of the chat before we
Mm-hmm.
came on, leading indicators are your friend. They set you up before the event happens. So you
Mm-hmm.
can actually have time to enter, do your money management calc, place your stop and your target, and let the market take you in. This is a leading indicator, and the unemployment is in its next move going to go up. And that's
Okay.
going to require a weaker dollar to try get manufacturing jobs back in America. He's trying to reverse a certain percentage of globalization.
That's not an easy feat, I think.
Chinese work hard, they work cheap, and they work long.
Yeah.
And they're
And
smart. And the chickens have come home to roost.
yeah.
At a
And
national level, at a state level, at a municipal level, at a personal consumer level, at a corporate level. 15% of the S&P 500 borrowed to pay dividends because it was cheaper when the rates were so low, and built debt on their balance sheet because it helped max out their share option instead of
that's
paying out the
ridiculous.
cash in the banks. And we've had a control agency fraud, which just about professional management becoming multi-centimillionaires just by being a CEO of a car maker, for example, for a while, not having done anything good. Coca-Cola is less of a company today than it was 2 decades ago, by balance sheet, by debt, by everything. It's all
Yeah.
financial engineering. There's no growth in it. There's everything. The ratings and the PE are higher than it's ever been before. So the cost of the collapse in the debt market, which is my avalanche picture I was showing you, in a binary world where everybody just sees bonds, and if you're not in bonds, you're in equity, has led to a hyper overvalued, equity market.
So it was higher than 1929, the overvaluations now.
Ridiculous. And then you've crowded out into the statist Mag 7, your surveillance society companies. So they
Bless
can
you.
buy up any innovation just on equity valuation. So they've made such a strong currency out of their equity. They can kill any rival technology that's at a fetal level. Google
Hmm.
buys lots of innovations, and half of them they bury. Yeah, that's where we're at in the
So,
world.
okay.
This is the ether that is being warmed up and the pressure is building and it's going
Hmm.
to blow. The pressure is growing. I like diagrams and pictures so that people can understand. We've already had a 50% debt devaluation. They can't let too much more fall right away because people will stop buying it as a collapsing asset. So
Hmm.
they need the currency devaluation to take some of the right down. That's why I say he's going to need a weaker dollar.
Hmm.
Eventually, if we go disorderly, you'll get a dollar spike because too many nations have dollar denominated debt. That's where
Hmm.
the dollar milkshake theory and that part of it I credit Brent Johnson for.
Yeah, that's what
Uh,
I wanted to ask you about that because I saw some tweets from you in the past, and it seems like you agree partially with Brent, but there's a few varying viewpoints that you have. So if you can walk through that, that would be awesome.
yeah, so the aspect of offshore dollars and them having tertiary extraction contracts attached to that, in other words, interest, means you need an ever expanding amount of dollars to service that. And those nations are not selling enough to America to do that, which
Hmm.
can cause, even though it's one of the most proliferated currencies ever, a shortage because it's an expanding universe. Debt-based systems are expansive. They have to just keep getting bigger.
Hmm.
You can control the rate, but if I mean, if me and you have $1,000 between us, I have 500 and I loan 300 to you and you had 200 of your own and it's 1,000 in the total system. Now you borrowed the 300. Once you no longer have that 200 to give me in interest rate payments, you have to find new dollars. So
Hmm.
one of us has to be an issuer of dollars because you can't pay me back the 200 I lent you with interest. There's not enough dollars in existence, especially if I sit on my 500 and you go start your business with the 200 and you're using your 300 for working capital. Where do
Hmm.
you get the extra dollars? Because I'm not expecting 200 back. I want 220 at 10% from you in a year's time. And in over 10 years, you're going to have given me 500 back. So this is the problem. So it's an
Yeah.
expansion system. So you're sitting with a geyser that is expanding, that's being heated up. So you can devalue the debt. That's what Volcker did. He raised interest rates very, very high, and you had a
Hmm.
huge period of stagflation. That's when gold ran to $800, by the way.
Hmm.
And he was killing debt as a reserve asset. He reset the clock so low for the value of debt and the yield so high that it eventually, once the valuation was well down on what the GDP was, and now your debt on your credit card is next to nothing compared to what you're earning, you had a whole new clean runway to run 40 years with this as a debt as a reserve asset again, where it could incrementally grow and actually deliver a yield, even though that yield was below the inflation rate. So he did debt devaluation. America's already now done some debt devaluation, my avalanche clip with the 50%. That came harsh and violently, by the way. And since then, as I've highlighted, Druckenmiller and Tudor Jones have come out and said they short. And there's
Yeah.
record shorts on TLT, which is why I feel it's probably going to be more the dollar that has to take the devaluation. You've got to let this pressure out, otherwise it blows when this needle gets all the way around. You need to
Yeah.
get the needle back. Well, you can't really because it keeps adding heat, but you can stop it from slow it from going up if you take some of the debt that devaluation in the currency itself, because it's still worth it's $1 billion of 10-year notes. If you make the dollar cheaper, you have actually let some of the pressure out relative to the other currencies. So that's also how you'll bring some manufacturing back to America, because
Okay.
then certain things start to become close to equally possible in America. You're tariffing China, you're making your dollar less so that the wages you'd pay your workers in America aren't as punitive. You can sell for higher dollars because people have got more valuable euros, Swiss francs, pounds, etc. That's what the game I think he's going to be looking to play. So currency.
Now, when Volcker did all that, the debt to GDP was lower. So do you see that being an issue now that our
He's
debt to
not,
GDP is?
as I said, this is an oil tanker that's decided to do all the right things 100 meters away from the lighthouse.
Yeah.
And you run aground before you hit the lighthouse. So it's 2 minutes to midnight.
So it's a
Oh,
futile effort.
yes, I do. So this is
Yeah.
the thing you asked the question. So Brent Johnson's correct about the offshore dollars. The
Hmm.
thing that I find a dichotomy is his typical X feed
Yeah.
is very nationalistic and very proud and a little bit gerrymandering. You know, he's kind of like, oh, look, the people that say there's no one to buy the debt. And he actually posts, you know, the charts and the foreign holdings of debt going up. And I go, yes, it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a
From
fraud.
from shell companies in the
You
Cayman
know, as if
Islands.
he's saying people really still want our debt. No, nobody wants your debt. It's Cayman bloody Islands that's
Yeah.
buying it. It's Belgium. Who do you think's behind the buy button on that? It is your captured UK who also just sent you all the gold that is quite happy to slit its own throat to survive because the parasites that run the UK are actually in the US, so they will sacrifice one part quite happily. I mean, all of that. You know, so you're sitting with
Yeah.
UK as your best buy while China's withdrawing, Japan's withdrawing, and you're telling me happy days. He's a nationalist. He thinks America still comes back out of this. He's a pan-Americana nationalist, and he needs calling on that. And
Yeah.
you know, it's like, look, there's people still buying our debt, and you're issuing more of it, and it's got to go somewhere. You can't issue it to nobody. Somebody has to be saying, okay, I'm taking it. Otherwise, you can't issue the debt note. Otherwise, it's a failed auction.
Yeah.
And if you're issuing it at a record rate, of course, the number's going up. But these foreign entities are not real investable nations. These are the not-for-profit trades about the Ponzi scheme. And yet you're bragging about, yeah, people still want our shit. No,
Yeah.
they don't. They don't. Not sane people that pursue sound money principles. They're accumulating gold.
Yeah.
And that's Russia, China, everybody else. And they're in actually better financial nick, including China, which some people say, no way, is their property market and all of that. In that sense, in terms of gold, they're in better nick. Russia, much better nick. You look at the tax rates in Russia. I think it's 20%, 10% personal tax and 15% corporate tax. I mean, it's like the communists, the synthesis is the antithesis and the thesis. The communist nations have become capitalist with
Yeah.
stimulate activity and capitalism in your country. And the capitalist nations have become high tax places.
Yeah.
I mean, the UK and Europe, my God, there's just social.
There's a lot of misinformation because, you know, China has the gold accumulate program for its own citizens. And I don't see the US telling their citizens to accumulate gold.
Who's putting forward sound money policies more to their citizens? And America's buy now, pay later, get a loan, stimulate the economy, buy a car, a depreciating asset, a new car.
So ultimately, you agree temporarily with the dollar milkshake, but you think that it plays out.
Then I think we're going to get a contagion. When you get another period of contagion in the debt market like this, they're going to be forced to raise rates suddenly and violently. Even the UK proxy, whoever's controlling it, they'll be asking, how long are you going to be buying something that's losing more money than in a week than when you last bought it, that's already down? How long will they get these proxies? How long will they fund the Cayman Islands before somebody's right? It's a toxic bank. Basically, these are toxic banks in different locations.
Yeah.
At some point, somebody asks, who's the owner behind the toxic bank that's happy to eat all the worthless assets and pay big money for it, just so that you can masquerade that you're healthy and can continue to operate? So that is the part that he's not dealing with, in my view. And the notion is actually America, in my view, has a harsher coming down than many other nations, many people look down on by living standard. So I'd actually say you probably would have a better life in Thailand, for example, and you're going to have less draconian government issues, and you're going to get more freedom to wander around the plantation and all of that, and you're going to have less taxation. You're going to be less monitored and less trapped. If you're happy to not have your mobile phone on you, you can probably still get lost somewhere in the wilderness, which is almost impossible to do in the Western world. And the harshness of the right sizing is going to be brutal. I think in truth, America needs to spend a tenth on its military, because no one's going to come and say, okay, let's take 90%. That's not a haircut. That's when someone chops your head off. That's essentially what you need. And what tends to happen with companies in bankruptcy and with countries in bankruptcy is nobody makes the brutal cuts up front. They make lots of small cuts and they keep coming back again and again and again. And that's morale destroying. That chases the best citizens out the country. And then you start to have a talent drain. And then suddenly all the miracle best unicorn surveillance corporations aren't being birthed in a Californian garage anymore. They're happening in Beijing and Singapore. And it's the same financiers and the same VC guys that's got a branch in Singapore that are backing them. And suddenly you're a welfare state, a very big welfare state, with a lot of debt that needs paying back. You're getting very little for your tax. You're getting very little for your services because you're trying to right size.
Makes
You're a
sense.
real
Yeah.
overweight person who's now not being fed much food anymore.
Yeah.
But I don't want to knock on, there'll be Americans watching this and they just think I'm beating up on them. I love the American people. They've got a captured government, like most places. And unfortunately, they were playing a lead role in this movie. And
Yeah.
in the end, Macbeth, who is the hero and all of that, gets killed and is then the anti-hero. They were chosen for Macbeth. Everyone else is a smaller bit part player. And they
Yeah.
had the good years where they should have made out millions and recognized that mathematically this day is coming. There's so many obvious facts. By the way, inside some of these slides, I've also highlighted that they are telling you that America is bankrupt. And everyone thinks, okay, that's shit talking, no, this is so that they established alibi and can tell you interest payments on the national debt are now higher than the Defense Department budget and growing every month. Elon Musk. He's your vice president by all decree. Trump has made X posts saying that. So they've already started preceding what's coming next. So do you want to be in a corporation as an employee that's going to go through a bankruptcy, or would you rather be at the healthy rival? Or change jobs? Because it's going to be shit fun going to the office. And you're probably going to lose your job. And I would actually take the first retrenchment offer. It's probably the best one. As they realize they've got less and less money and they're going to get more menial and they're going to be more harsh and they're going to want more productivity and flog you for lesser salary. Don't be the last to switch out the lights in a major downturn,
Yeah. That makes 100% sense. And even Jerome Powell said that the debt levels were unsustainable. I think that was like last year at some point.
Yeah. But these are establishing alibis. They just like to have said it, but not push on it too hard so that they say, hey, I did say on the following day, and then there's the headline and on that date, and, you didn't listen.
Yeah.
You kept spending. I warned you. It's establishing alibi. Well, you're part of the facilitating machine that did this. So, you can establish alibi, but I don't let you off the hook for that. But it's past the can. It's a bit Louis the 14th, I think it was, after me the storm. Every political 4-year plan. There's much more longevity and multi-generational planning in what China's doing. They're doing a soft, aggressive, growing imperialism. And it's suddenly like Trump woke up and realized that. Yeah. And everybody else was sleeping on it. And I was like, where have you been? There's a police force in South Africa, manned by Chinese people, serving Chinese people doing contract work. These guys are, let me tell you, these guys have been slowly working in, they're dropping their citizens in, and all their citizens always report back to their cousin that has a factory that does this. These guys have been slow tortoise winning this race. The PSYOP kings is actually America, and you're paying for those. You literally had corporations from Nike and all of that. Men, it's time to own up to your toxicity type vibes. Adverts, Gillette, all of these people. You've literally had corporations bent into preaching thanks to their ownership of BlackRock. Mm-hmm. And these are the guys that are going to see you owning your homes and renting them back to you once they create the next crash. These are rapists. These are people that mock you. These are people that are inverting your world. Why are you wanting to see the downdraft out in America? Peak America has happened. Make your money, take it out, and watch this movie. You can visit anytime if you're a citizen in America. You can visit anytime. They're going to start a money grab that no one's seen. It's Yellen, the most capitalist nation in the world, not the Chinese, not the Russian communists, supposedly, that are talking about unrealized capital gains taxes.
Oh, yeah. What a ridiculous thing.
Where do you go with a discussion like that? The cornerstone of capital will force you to sell an asset because they think technically, while it's not been proven or shown and tested in a free market where it was actually sold and a certain price was attained, they think it's gone up in value and they need some money now, thank you. So you actually have to go find out what it really is worth. It's absolute, it's collapse. You're talking about, when you look at all these pieces dispassionately, you're talking about an economic collapse, and it's the debt.
Mm-hmm. And
you're talking about what Trump will tweet out, and it will be some line back to the debt-based collapse. We need to spend less. We need to cut jobs. We need to do this. I literally showed you the military defense, and with one of many quotes. I could have chosen any. And by the way, they like to put the collapses on the Republican Party.
Yeah.
It's 3x4. There you go. Recessions, Democrats, recessions.
Yeah.
So they say, you see, you voted center right, you get collapse, because they actually want communism, and that's the left.
Mm-hmm.
the Bolshevik technological communism. Meanwhile, it's about the cycle. People are starting to get weary, already having hard times, and that's when the Republicans get in. But they're not small government people either. So,
No.
as I say, no dog in that fight.
Um,
Anyway,
yeah, for
that's what
instance,
I've got for you. Have you got any other questions before I sign off?
yeah, I have one last question. In a world that feels increasingly chaotic, how do you personally find freedom and peace of mind?
Well, I have a community dedicated literally to that. And you get one life, and you were born into this world as imperfect as it is, and it's a beautiful experience, and I celebrate it and I love it. I do healthy things that I love, that give me thrills. I have bikes, I have nice places to live. I live well. I do the things I enjoy. Talking about this, getting the popcorn out and watching this whole story, translating all these frauds, business speak into what it really means, looking after our community, building wealth. So our modus operandi, what we offer here as the market sniper, is wealth building, capital protection, and freedom maximization in an environment where it's a mathematical certainty for a major economic worldwide collapse. So there will be contagion to everywhere in the world. There's no country in the world that won't have some effect. Maybe North Korea
Yeah.
will be somewhat insulated. I'm not advising going there. But with that understood, we have a community dedicated. We will trade it. We will profit from it because we can't stop it.
hmm
There's much bigger forces than us that are doing it. So, Stoicism is recognizing that you can change and that which you can't. There are people that say, well, for every one person that turns and changes, we get a little bit closer. Great. I've got a community that can come join me. I'm waiting to see hundreds of thousands of people on X calling out Trump and Musk for not really being peaceniks, not really being out for the best in Americans, but being forced by matters of necessity.
Yeah.
We need to see more people seeing the big game. And we
Yeah.
need more people that praise and look after people like me. I got 2 strikes on my YouTube channel, trying to protect people from taking the you-know-what.
Yeah.
I have had everyday people's interests at heart and mind and are devout towards pursuing integrity and principle to those that show me respect. And to corporations that are aggressive, I actively look to confuse, feed them bullshit and everything else. We are in a war. Sorry, the dustbin guys have shown up suddenly rather late. We are in a, and you have to realize it. And most people don't realize that we are literally sitting here in a financial, a social, a geopolitical battle for your life, your physical life, your biological life, your financial life, your happiness, your spirit. They want to take your soul. And we are hell-bent on the preservation of our freedoms, building wealth so that you can buy yourself more freedoms in an environment where they want to hollow you all out. The end game is serfdom for the masses, total reliance on government decree, where they can then control how much you eat, when you eat, what's in that food, what gets injected in you, and when your time is up. It literally is the Hunger Games. But there was some other movie where they were saying, you get to go be the lucky lottery winner, and they choose someone for killing every now and then and make a big thing like they're going to some nirvana and they're actually whacking them.
Yeah.
It is truly that. And they seed it in those same films and garbage that they churn out of Hollywood. And here they are seeding to you that there's a bankruptcy and there's a major, major right sizing of America coming. Do you want to be in America for the right sizing of America? This is my big question. Do you want to be in the West for the right sizing of Europe and the UK? Because those are going to be equally brutal. I don't. And it's a difficult decision to make. And many have children and everything. I say your opportunities, sometimes choosing your environment is more important than what you do. You can execute very well. You could be absolutely brilliant. If you're in the wrong team, a toxic culture, a continual cuts, even if you're a brilliant, they will fire a brilliant person because they have to. They have to cut the payroll.
Yeah.
And, you weren't there for 10 years and know the boss as well as the other guy. But if you just position in the right environment and execute to a reasonable standard and still have a good quality of life, you catch all the best waves because you're in the right surf spot. You're the man with the board who got to the right place where the perfect rips are. It's about positioning often more than individual execution. Good execution could make you unbelievably wealthy in perfectly sound positioning. And the one place that isn't positioned right now is all the nations that are about to go through a debt-based collapse. And that would have been like trying to live well during glasnost and perestroika era in the Soviet Union. Who was, apart from the oligarchs that were stealing all the assets of the Russian nation, how were the average Russians living during that period? The bread shops were empty. There was no bistro, cappuccino, and slice of cake lifestyle. Do you want to be in the equivalent of a major right sizing that's going to get disorderly? You don't switch all this off without it getting disorderly. And people are going to start seeing the trend, just like we called the bond turn in August of 2020. And now they listen when Paul Tudor Jones says it at the back end of 2024, 4 years later. Now I'm saying the next thing. This is a right sizing. If you're in the army in America, take a retrenchment package, go join the army in Thailand or somewhere else. If that's what you want to do, be in a military. It's not the place to be. No one's going to get bumper pay raises no matter what you do. No one's going to get bonuses. Everything's going to be cut. Your equipment's going to go down overall. The maintenance is going to go down. The dangers are going to go up. There is nothing good about the macro trend. It's like me putting you in a bunch of chop and churn and say, ride me a 30-foot wave all the way onto the beach. You're not going to do it. You've got to go to Honolulu. You've got to go to flipping Hawaii. You've got to go, if you want to catch a big wave like that and do the ride of a lifetime where you're using the force of the trend behind you to give you this banner moment, an amazing ride where you're accumulating wealth, don't go to the wrong place. And right now, the wrong place to be is there. Listen, there was a time, if you were in tech, middle class, and went to a good university, California absolutely was the place to be. You could have been a millionaire on stock options in Excite, Yahoo, Microsoft, any of 101 places. The chances of you being wealthy was the best place in town. No one can take that from you historically. It's going to change. Capital formation is even going to move away. You'll watch VC, more of it go transnational outside of California. That'll still exist. It won't happen overnight. People say, oh, he said it will end. America will still exist. The country, I'm not saying it's disappearing. It's not going to be the place it was. It's not going to have the liquidity it had. It's not going to be the fulcrum of innovation to the same degree. And it's too late to turn the oil tanker around. But even worse than America is Europe and the UK. They're not even they haven't even seen the lighthouse yet. They've literally crashed into it. And they're going full speed ahead. And if they want to engage with us, if I may, the Market Sniper YouTube channel, and also on X under the Market Sniper, we cover crypto as well. Also, the Crypto Sniper. So yeah, they can find us on both X and YouTube there.
Well, Francis, that was amazing advice for everybody. I just want to say, really appreciate your honesty and integrity and the message that you bring to everybody. And everybody, if you liked this interview with Francis, please give us a like and a subscribe. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace.